Yeah, and honestly, I'm thinking about what they would want to pick with it. Of course, Shadow Shaman got the very interesting change that you do heal with the shackles now. We'll see some red numbers and some green numbers at the same time, but uh, whether or not that hero's proven itself, I think it's an interesting answer to the Tombstone. As with the Ember Spirit, you don't really solve that problem, even though Undying can't lock you down. Ember's never going to be running at the tomb to get it out of the fight, and it's something that and neither of the King of King cores really do at this stage. And we might need to see that picked up in their final pick here in their carry, just because the tomb can start running away with the fight. And we saw yesterday, whenever Z Freak picked up the Undying, that, well, once the tomb gets down, you have to make that very difficult decision where are we going to commit 3 heroes to hit it, in which case that ghost ship's going to come flying through, and then the team fight gets super messy.
Or Huskar.
And then Hokori, yeah, slamming the Huskar, that's a interesting pick. Now, laning versus Pango, that sounds a lot better than laning versus Mars Rubik, I'll be honest. Not to mention, you've got a 5 position that heals you up. There's a little bit of a buffer to play with now. I honestly think this Huskar is even more set up than Yamsun was in the previous game.
Yeah, and now maybe that Undying pick makes a little bit more sense, right? We were sort of calling into question just how effective it could be, but if it was meant the whole time to really play support to a position 1 Huskar, then you are going to feel a little bit better about it. That very much should be a position 1 Huskar. The last time around we saw, I think it was actually the exact same setup, right? It was the Huskar at the 1 with a Kunkka in the lineup, so should be seeing the laning split be pretty much exactly the same as it was then.
Yeah, and I really like that combo just because, as we've seen with a lot of the drafts thus far since 7-3-1, you either need a playmaker in your mid and then an additional playmaker in your carry, or you need your carry to just be this provider, this lane winner that suddenly is providing damage and gives you Rosh. And that's something that Huskar does. Big drawback, and we brought it up in the Yamsun game. Not very much building damage with this combo. You're kind of compounding on that problem, but I honestly don't feel like it's going to be the biggest issue because aside from that swashbuckle and in terms of wave clear, King of Kings don't have that same answer. They don't have that same person just running down the waves. It's where having Rubik and Storm Spirit could have been more annoying. Other parts of their draft kind of failed them, I think, in that game that made it look a little bit easier. But when it comes to actually getting these towers down, Hokori do need, I think, one more member, and we're going to have to see that in their offlaner here to dive in and get the kills, because if they're not killing these heroes behind the towers, these pushes could stall out really quickly, and it's when the pushes stall out that you find those opportunities to just get jumped and blown up, and that's something that Embers, especially with the way that he's been kind of rescaled and retuned, you just immediately get turned on and you eat 1,000 damage in a moment.
And King of Kings, you really laid it out for them band wise, and they were listening. Beastmaster and Brood, both heroes that Vitali would have been more than comfortable with and would have filled that exact sort of gap, right? You've got someone who can run at you, someone who can push lanes, someone who can, well, provide lockdown is a little bit more the Beastmaster than the Brood, but it still would have sort of slotted in pretty much exactly where they needed it to. So not going to be able to go for that. There is, I mean, still, the Mars in the
Still
pool.
the
No one's
Mars,
taking it
yeah.
out.
It'd be really funny, to be honest, if they just last overall picked Mars, because it's been a very long time since that's ever been allowed. But at the same time, I think King of Kings want you to pick that hero just because they have the Pango. They feel confident about that matchup. It's something that Hokori have to decide. King of Kings really don't need to pay no mind to it, where, well, now you got to think about your carry here. What are you going to play into the Huskar matchup? And it's weird saying the Huskar matchup, Razor. Okay,
There's your counter.
that's really interesting. I mean, as soon as he dives
Counter-ish.
in, there's no way out. Yeah, it's like you are the most committal carry you could probably be here. And it's weird, I guess, as the Huskar gets more popular, I guess we are going to call it that. But even more so than your Tiny, even more so than your Troll. Once you're in, you are in. And if you are jumping in and then BKB running out whenever you get static linked, this is a really dominant Razor pick.
Yeah, if you have to do as you described, jump in and then immediately say, "Oh damn, BKB and back off," then that's not what you picked the Huskar for. But we'll see. If it is going into Yuma's hands, I have to assume he's going to try and pick his targets much more judiciously in this instance. You can't just jump straight in onto the Razor. So see what the plan is here. So Corey are going to grab the Veno with that 5th pick. So the Mars gets thrown by the wayside, neither picked nor banned for the first time in a month, it feels like. But Vitali Veno, that is going to be interesting. They do sacrifice maybe a little bit of durability with the Venomancer, depending on the itemization, but quite a bit more in the way of maybe damage and utility to work with in some of these fights.
This is so annoying, actually, because now King of Kings, who kind of have to run at you, especially with their supports to find the pick, now you're going to have this Veno that's going to be just in between causing problems. Corey have such an obnoxious draft, actually. They have Huskar, Veno, Undying, Kunkka. That it's going to be really tough for King of Kings to actually find their way on top of these heroes. Of course, that's where Benny's BKB timing is going to be crucial for their lineup. Whether or not he gets that in an expedient fashion just means that maybe they don't take a team fight that they otherwise could be, and that's where I think Hokori, maybe they look for the Roche a little bit sooner. Now, every other member on Hokori isn't really doing him any favors when it comes to killing Roche. The Undying's going to help out a little bit with his ultimate, but that's where Vitali's hero, I think, is just to give them a little bit more of an idea of where their opponents are coming into. And it's going to be now a problem that Benny has to solve. Whether or not he's able to close the gap on the Huskar is the new question of the game. Only problem is you've really compounded on this problem with the Ember Spirit. Kunkka is your only catch. He is your only playmaker. You are completely reliant on him. And whether or not Yuma is actually able to do this, I think it's a really smart decision to see him move over towards that carry Kunkka, just because now you are going to put down this Ember Spirit heavily. This is the classic counter pick for the Ember. Just send him versus the Huskar. Can't get the Flame Guard. Can't really get the points up in Slight. We'll see if he gets any kills going his way whenever the supports get involved on the runes. But I think giving Mini as poor a start as possible is going to be crucial. Because if he has a good game, Corey might just fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way that things have kind of gone for just about every team that we have seen Mini sort of get put onto. Is it possible for teams to win when he doesn't pop off? Yes, absolutely. We're not going to sort of entirely lay it at his feet. But if he does not have a good game, or if he just straight up struggles, all of a sudden, I mean, your winning percentage just tanks. So getting him involved, keeping him safe, making sure that he doesn't have to, well, just kind of go into poverty mode in his lane is going to be unbelievably important. King of Kings to work with, as I do believe, yes indeed, we are getting things started here. Brief pause at the start, going back to well, some sort of old trends for South American Dota. There was a period there, year and a half ago, where basically every single game started with the pause, but that is a benefit. Feels like the server status has gotten a little bit better for some of these SA squads for sure, so it is nice. It's just one of those things, right? Developing a region always goes better when your players don't have to play on 200 ping in their home region.
Exactly, and hey, at least Mini's not playing Sand King. Well, Benny, he
Benny
got clipped.
That's very far forward. That's a free fire torrent that, yeah, you're not going to miss that. He's so slow, and I mean, that Gale was very close to missing. You said clipped. That was sort of, yeah, the operative word. The Razor very nearly got away, but, well, if you're Benny, the good news, you're going to get back to the lane in time, but it is an unfortunate little setback for him to start this game off.
No, but hey, at least you broke their smoke. We're going to see them probably split the runes here. We'll see if anyone from Hokori makes the trek up towards this top spot, but they honestly might just be happy with the split here. Don't want to use any more of the region because they are very mana bound on their heroes. If Gardic ends up spending too much before they get the trades going their way, then suddenly your Undying doesn't have the easiest opportunity to kind of send his courier out, reset really that hero specifically. So easy 2-2 split, but well, actually, no.
King of Kings getting 3 of 4 there. Okay.
Nice little snipe. Okay, they did it. And Thiliakor actually ate a lot of harass as well. Not even with Serem skilling up, so it could have been even worse for him, but just kind of got it away. I wonder how we're going to see the battle of the creep camps go here. We already see the large camp blocked up here, but Thiliakor with 2 sentries, he has what it takes to kind of turn things in his favor, but no high ground ward placed, as we so typically see with the Dire Marana. So we'll have to see if Thiliakor makes the trek all the way into that jungle around that 2-minute mark.
Yeah, the other obs ward is next to the Roche pit. I don't know if I've really seen that. At least not the sort of first wards of the game. That is a bit of an interesting one, but it gives them vision over that river. They're going to see any sort of rotations coming mid. Just maybe an unusual place to put it, but Meanwhile, Theolacor himself got the sort of courier snipe ward. Doesn't really do him much good for vision over the jungle, taking camps or blocking camps, but if you can get your Mirana behind enemy lines, take those couriers out, we have seen in the past that does, quite a bit to sort of shut down this safe lane duo. As Sarem, speaking, getting shut down, he gets hit by the Gale, and they can just A-click him down, really. That's simple. That's free. Sarem can't do anything. He turned around for a brain sap, but not enough to save him, and Mini can't do much to help either.
Yeah, and well, yet again, Venom, another hero, barely touched when it comes to 7.31, but changed in such a way that his damage earlier on has received an incredible increase, where suddenly the harass from Poison Sting, although you are losing one tick flat out on that, you are doing, on average, I think, more damage once you get started, and that's where the continuous trades are only going to favor them, not to mention because of the Huskar swap up, Mini has been forced to play the safe lane Ember Spirit, and well, it's definitely going to get its job done. It's not going to get shut out when it comes to getting those range creeps, as we have brought up several times that there's no longer that damage reduced on the creeps. So getting the range creep last hit is a very simple task. It just means that pre-6 though, this will happen, and well, he's out of the lane. The Bane is pulling, so there's nothing he can do. He's just dead.
And I like this play from Theolacor. He leapt in first, holds onto the arrow. He gives over that sort of attack speed bonus to himself and Vitali, because you don't really need it. Sure, he could have gotten the arrow and that would have been the lockdown, but then I don't know if you have the right click afterwards to finish the job. So he now spares the arrow. They still get the kill that they wanted. They're going to kind of pull this. I don't really think they wanted to. Yeah, they're just going to have to let it go back. But this is looking pretty good for Hokori so far. 3 straight kills for them, and all 3 of those kills going into the hands of this offlane duo. And now Sarem, you still got to be very careful here. This time he's got the Nightmare, but he doesn't have enough mana to actually use it. He's just lucky Vitali was closer to the actual lane.
Yeah, also getting hit up by the small camp creeps there. It felt a little bit scarier maybe for the Bane than it otherwise would be, but Theodore already has his urn, so any kills, nice dodge out from Mini there. All the action in the bottom lane, though, they're just constantly looking to pressure up this Ember Spirit, because they know once he hits level 5, has 3 points up in the fist, then your ranged heroes start to crumble a little bit. Then the harass actually is there, and oh, well, Vitaly didn't reset himself, so he's going to go down. His courier's right there.
He just had to wait a few seconds. It had Stick and some tangos. Theolacor able to get something as a trade-off, so that's well done by the Mirana, but really, you had to wait like 2 seconds. The courier was right there. Tali just sort of jumps the gun. Now he'll get those delivered, but does cost him his life, but this is still honestly a rough situation, and honestly at this point we're just going to keep the camera bot. It did sort of swing over to the other lanes for a moment, but it's really nothing more than just sort of poking and prodding at this point. This bottom lane's the only one where we're seeing Hokori really playing all that aggressively. Everywhere else, they're just kind of looking to secure farm for themselves.
Honestly, I think the only other lane to really look at right now is mid, where Benny is running a clinic right now. He is absolutely kind of throttling Analog in it. It's where you have to be a little bit concerned for your Huskar's game right now. And as I say that, Yuma just had the X, kept him underneath the tombstone for a really long time. I think he had 3 zombies on his feet at that point, but that's the lane that I think Hokori are definitely the most capable of winning. Just having a very strong hero in the Kunkka. Once he hits level 6, then they might have kill potential on Dunha. Before then, though, definitely not, especially because he's going for a Vanguard of all things, so he is just incredibly tanky.
Sorry, what? I was very distracted. It's okay, it's still going. Something is wrong with Gardick's head, or the head of his model, excuse me, not Gardick himself. He's just fine, but
Oh, it is stretching.
it is
I see
just
that now.
dragging. That's okay, cool. You know, game's in beta, guys. Listen, these glitches are gonna happen. Sorry, I got distracted by his head stretching out over the entire north side jungle, but should be. Oh, I was gonna say return to the top lane, but he is actually gonna TP mid. The problem is, there's no one here. He's not really gonna be able to do a bottle refill, so could just try and maybe sap a little bit of experience while the Huskar pushes into the jungle, but Analog feels like he's not entirely sure where he wants to go, just kind of waiting for the creep camps to respawn, so
He's in recovery mode. He's in a rough spot. 26 and 22. I mean, Benny is just ran away with this lane, and of course, you kind of are. You are Razor. He's doing exactly what his hero's meant to do, but lane wise, I mean, he's just beasting out on the mid lane, and yeah, Gardeck's just gonna get the scraps now of all these denied creeps, more or less. While Analog, his only real option is just to keep on hitting neutrals. He ideally farms the ancient camp whenever he gets that armlet, but without it, he's way too weak, and they actually go for a full swap here. They're just going to try and put Vitaly mid now. And Vitaly, it's only level 1 Plague Wards. This is where the Venom typically ends up going after everything starts to break apart. But with level 1 wards, sure, Vitaly's going to level up pretty quickly now, but it's still just going to be more farm shoved into the face of the Razor.
Meanwhile, they're bringing Hane down to the bottom lane, looking to keep pressure on
Oh,
Analog. They hit him
no.
up with the Nightmare first. Shackle should be coming in. Can Diolacor do anything with an arrow here? He's going to throw it to cancel out the stun, and Analog is just going to have to fight for his life, but he's not fighting for long. They quickly take him down. You can swap up the lanes, that's fine, but Analog continues to be the target. They bring heroes in, and all it takes is Hane's arrival. They just go straight at him. Sarem very aggressive with the Nightmare, and Huskar is going to continue to struggle to find his place right now.
Yeah, and even looking at his current items, hasn't even felt confident enough to go for the double bracer. And usually you go for the double bracer because that's where your regen comes from. It's based off of your strength, but he just felt like there's no time. And that's where I think Analog is going to continue to really struggle here. Not to mention, well, if you are playing versus an Ember carry now in this game, it's all physical damage. So when it comes to tanking through these spells, man doesn't really care all too much, to be honest. And I think finding his way back into this game, it has to be a combination of a play with him and Yuma, because that's where, unfortunately, with this lane going as bad as it has, all of the pressure is going to be on Yuma. Because if he is not able to kind of fix your lanes, get yourself some gold with his dynamic plays, then, well, it's just been such a bad start. I think Hokori picking and drafting these heroes, were really expecting him to do what really we saw Gunnar do the other day on Huskar, where he's doing the exact thing that Benny's done to him, where he's sitting at 22 and 22, but instead everything's just come up dry for Analog.
Yeah, it is not a great start for him, and all things considered, you know, you look at your stat line for the Huskar, and it doesn't seem that bad. You know, 0-1-1, 27-7 last hit and deny-wise, but we swap over to the net worth as Theolacor picks off Mini. Very nicely done, but the point still stands. Analog, net worth, absolutely in the dumpster right now. I mean, Theolacor is pushing up on him. To be fair, that's a Miranda that's 4-0, but it's still not a great situation to be that low on the totem pole among the core heroes this early.
Nope, definitely not. And, well, okay, this is kind of funny. Benny is going for a Midas on the Razor.
Oh.
Really feeling himself, but it just means he can't push his advantage really as hard. So, you know, trading farm for being a little bit gritty here. It's a Benny thing, to be honest. He's used to playing his hard farmers, his Medusas, his trolls, his heroes that get a Battle Fury and don't really show up. So, turning Razor into one of them is just a little bit funny to me. But at the same time, look at Mini bottom. He's trying to outplay Analog right now because he does have the level advantage, but he needs to be so careful. But he's got two remnants. Can Mini do it? Little crazy. Little crazy.
Okay, he had the bailout. What is this, though? Sarem? Excuse me? Analog just life broke himself to death. Sarem gets the kill. I mean, they clean Sarem up immediately afterwards, but ET, that should not have happened. That was one hero pushing into 3 underneath his opponent's tier 1 tower, and he gets the kill. Gardeck then picks up a double as Mini gets run down. So at least Hokori will sort of trade things back out afterwards, but that straight up shouldn't have happened.
Nope. Really awkward for Analog. I think he was assuming that Gardeck was maybe closer there to hit him up with the Soul Rip, because of course Huskar is strongest at his weakest point. Whenever that region's coming through, you just need to not actually get murdered, and Analog's just not able to keep it up, unfortunately. Hey, at the same time, Vitaly taking over the mid lane, he's farming really well. Benny really can't do anything with his advantage that he gained early on in the lane, especially with the literal Midas Boots of Travel pick, like literally no greedier build in the game. But again, that's where I think we might see playmakers coming from the top lane, showing up everywhere else. Yuma's had an incredible start. I think, unfortunately, the Shadow Shaman, in trying to stop Yuma from farming, died to neutral creeps, which was a little bit crazy. I think he actually got stunned by the ogres, just got hit by the slam, because I've actually seen a bunch of pro players get hit by the slam, not really pay too much mind to the animation, and then get hit with 100 damage randomly. Uh, so I could definitely see a support going down because of that. But I think that's where, again, this top lane, Yuma and Dunha, Yuma's gonna definitely farm up, do whatever he can in his own jungle while he still has the space to work with. But seeing Dunha get out is going to be really important, because with the way that this Razor has went, he's not going to be running it down. He's going to be doing quite a lot of jungling to himself, and I think that's where Dunha and Mini really are the ones that need to sync up, because neither one of them have enough damage to kill off any of the Hokori heroes.
And we do see very different itemization for the Pango compared to what we saw from Divide the last time around. That Diffusal Blade was really picked up in the perfect situation considering the opponents that they were going up against. For Dunha, it wouldn't really be quite as useful, the Diffusal. So he goes for durability instead, but that leads into the problem, as you said, where they do kind of need to combine forces right now because neither one of them are giant killers on their own, as the Pango's going to run right into Gardic. Whole lot to be done there, and if you're the Huskar, he comes over to show solidarity, make sure Gardic doesn't get jumped in on, but that's not really a fight either side wanted to get involved in. This fight, though, might be a little bit different. King of Kings trying to push into the river, but Yolakor was able to pop the ult himself away, falling back successfully. Maybe even, yeah, time to drop down a ward. So, yeah, all things considered, that's a long cooldown. Moonlight Shadow always is, but you never really look at it as a necessary sort of tool, as Benny count your blessings. If the Yolakor hits that arrow, that is a free kill for Hokori. Instead, Benny gets a TP away, and, well, he's got to spend some time in the fountain, but better that than getting picked off there.
Yeah, meanwhile, Osarem, he set up with the TP. They already used the Serpent Ward's top, so they need a little bit more damage, but I think with Hannes coming in here, I think he's dead on the sap. Unless he toggles, but not enough time. Good halt fall packs, and the roll mid. Really just spinning these kills now.
Yolakor, so that's 2 kills across the map. Don't think they're going to be able to find anything more, but that is a nice sort of shot in the arm if you're King of Kings, right? Finding those big kills in multiple locations. You again get the Huskar sort of knocked back into a vulnerable position. So the Hokori lineup still kind of trying to find their footing, at least for the Huskar, right? I mean, Yuma's just insane. He's got bots, and he's working his way towards a BKB, so his farm is fantastic, but they need to get back on the offensive. They'll do exactly that in the bottom lane, as Hane, all by himself, has to deal with Analog and Gardic. We'll be able to bring him down. It did force out some spells from the Undying, but maybe they can keep this going into a push onto the tier 1. That tower has not taken a lot of damage, but they're going to be able to lay into it heavily.
No, and this is where the space, if there's one thing that Yuma has done that's been really nice, is that he hasn't taken away at all from his teammates' Ancients, and, well, they get a kill on mid. The boat connects onto Mini. I think he had previously just used his Slight, thinking it was only Vitalian Thiliacore pushing his tower again, but Yuma's showing up. It's enough, and that's 2 tier 1s immediately spun into their control, and now the fear of this Huskar falling behind is no longer really becoming a fear, and the death ball is starting for Hokori. They're starting to become very durable, and with these boots of travel on Yuma, there's not really a split push play that King of Kings can go for, because nobody is good at really hitting these buildings. It just means whoever can deal with the split push better just doesn't have to worry. Whoever kills the creeps gets to be immediately on the other side of the map, and well, that's what Hokori are doing right now, and they're going to continue to put on this pressure. Meanwhile, Analog just gets the perfect recovery. This is a really nice kind of resumed form here, and they're just completely taking over their jungle right now, because Vitaly just has the words everywhere. They know exactly where King of Kings are operating.
Yeah, it looked like Analog was going to suffer that. Well, it was still a setback, getting taken down earlier on, but the perfect response to really kickstart him again. And now, you got Dunhao in the jungle. No, you don't. He's going to be able to roll himself away. That X won't connect. But that's Rolling Thunder being used defensively, so you don't have to worry about that on the Hokori side for a little while. You do have to worry about this, though. Piranha getting hit up. Yeah, that's going to be a bit of a freebie. They know now that there's detection up there. A little bit too late for the Mirana's sake, but better Theodore to go down than really any of your core heroes, as Vitaly, when he came over, I think he threw, yeah, he threw a couple of Plague Wards down, but didn't really want to get overly involved.
No, definitely not. But at the same time, losing the Mirana, it's the least expensive death. Maybe the first one felt a little bit bad just because he was still on the snowball, but he's still incredibly high level for where we are in the current game. I think that's where, with the Fiends group coming back up, King of Kings throwing for Analog again, but the chains, they missed, but
Still
will
get
be
the
enough.
grip. Saram able to close the gap, and okay,
Ooh,
they didn't quite
almost.
get it with the Fiend's grip itself, but we'll still find it. Good attempt from Analog, trying to get that inner fire out at the last second, but he gets picked off again. So we are on a bit of a roller coaster ride with Analog, right? He gets picked off, comes back with some sort of teamfight win, some sort of pick play, then gets picked off again, and highs and lows for him. But right now, it still feels like a high. He's third overall in terms of net worth, so considering just how bad things were at the start against that Razor in lane, gotta be happy with where he stands.
Yep, really the biggest problem that King of Kings have to kind of deal with here is Doomha almost gets arrowed is just with they have to find the smoke play bottom, and they do find Analog twice in a row,
He's
but
gotta use it. He actually doesn't go
oh,
for the
no.
Rolling Thunder. And he's gonna try it now. Okay. Going in, looking for the stun. And actually, I mean, no one can hit him. He's still not taking enough damage. He is so low on HP, but he gets the max duration. He'll eventually be taken down. But really, they don't do anything with that AT. I think King of Kings thought Dunhow was backing off. Dunhow thought he was going in. Benny tries to get in on the back line and suddenly realizes he is completely alone.
And Theodore does need to arrow the Roche, I think, here to help his teammates out, but at the same time, it's the ring. It's the space that you get to work with because Vitaly is playing this Venomancer. After the Rolling Thunder, nobody can really stick around, and without overwhelming net worth on the Ember Spirit, you don't get to take that fight. And I think King of Kings, I'm not even certain if they were completely aware of what was going on because they went into the Roche pit with King of Kings still relatively in the area, but it's the vision from the Plague Wards that gives them that confidence where suddenly we know the fight isn't coming to us, and, well, that's an Aegis, and again, the first Aegis is the most difficult one, but now Analog has a much easier time feeling confident in these fights. We need BKBs on King of Kings, and we need them pretty soon. Otherwise, we can't really get that engagement, because again, we're stuck running at them. That's what the Veno forces us to do. It's what our lineup is not really capable of fixing right now. We're going to have a Blank Dagger finished on Dunha, I believe, but if they don't find that picture-perfect initiation, then these long, drawn-out fights, they only favor Hokori.
It feels like they're getting sort of stronger as we move along here. And, well, King of Kings, who does it? Who bites the bullet? Who's the one who's going to make those plays? Like you said, the Blink now up on Dunhow, you'd sort of look to him primarily, but where's the opening, right? Where's the weakness exposed in the Hokori lineup? If you try and go on the supports, well, look at the Olikor. Has the leaps, has the Yules, not an easy kill, right? You look at the Undying, it's an Undying. You can pop Flesh Golem and last a pretty long amount of time. So you don't want to go on the cores. You're not really sure you're going to kill them, but you're not even really sure you're going to kill the supports at this stage either. So you're just kind of stuck in a position where you want to make a play, but you might not be sure where, which means we get this in-between, where they're on their opponent's side of the map, but they're only here to farm.
Yeah, and this is definitely an option where you know exactly where your opponents are operating, you can't deal with it, so you try to invert the map, you try to flip where you're playing, but that's also where, unfortunately, if they had maybe an illusion carry, they could send these illusions out, the mantas, to the side lanes, cut the waves, make it harder for your opponents to just deathball up, because that is the problem right now. Hokori are deathballing you. They are looking at your high ground right now with this Aegis, if anything, just to poke, and once they get set up, it is so difficult for you to get out here, and that's where, unfortunately, the Razor, while he's doing his best, he's working hard to finish up this BKB, that's where maybe not getting enough wave clear in time is going to struggle. But that's also where Dunha, he's going to continue to do his job. That's why he's built a little bit more tanky in this game. He's trying to be obnoxious, but I don't know if he's going to be enough for his team here. This is going to be a very difficult defense, and actually got cooked by the arrow there. I don't know if they're going to follow up. It's kind of a dive, but...
Oh, Dunha. This feels forced. He's rolling out with the Rolling Thunder, but there's nothing to be done here. It's just a defensive measure, but he's rolling so far out that Hokori are just going to push in and go back for the tier 3 tower. So they kind of call his bluff. They know, listen, you're not actually going to roll in onto us. And we'll just keep going after the objective, and now the defense for King of Kings is even weaker. There just isn't really going to... Uh-oh. To be one is Benny. He's been caught out. No BKB this early. He's working towards it, but he hasn't finished it. The arrow came through as well. I don't know if it hit because the torrent was already sort of throwing him in the air, but doesn't matter. The second he lands, Hokori take him down. Now they can turn their attention to another objective, looking for the tier 2 mid, and well, back top, Analog cleared out the entire top lane. It is falling apart for King of Kings.
They're just way too set up. Like I said, the death ball is there. Look at Yuma. They haven't even got the tier 2, but he's looking for an X mark for the dive. And I think Benny gets caught there just because of the width of how Hokori are playing. They can be wherever they need to. And again, Yuma finds the pick. He's the one that starts it all off. I think this is just a horrible timing now. I understood they were maybe going to trade the top racks for that BKB, but Benny going down really just throws everything away. And yeah, they're using the wards just to kill the tombstone, if anything, but they need to get something with this next roll. We might see a smoke as soon as they clear these Venom wards, and they need to find initiation. They need to find their way onto someone. It's a lot of damage, but oh, nothing. And he's back over all the way on the other side of the map. Mini doesn't have a TP scroll. He's gone.
No.
If they knew, they would just immediately run at this tier 3, but I guess Mini might actually get away with this, but he's not showing for a while.
This courier, Veno's got it at the secret shop. If it moves just a few feet to the right, they would have spotted him, but actually they'll spot him now. Mini's moving his way through. Kills off the courier as he goes, so now they know where the Ember Spirit is. The problem is, it kind of feels like the moment may have passed a little bit. They needed to have just kept going. They had the momentum, but now they spotted Dunhow. There's going to be the Yules. Easy arrow set up. Vitaly hits him with the slow. He's still going to get off that swashbuckle, and that gives him the separation he needs for the roll. But whatever play he was trying to make there, getting behind enemy lines, it's been broken up. And once again, King of Kings are on the defensive.
Yeah, and well, fortunately for King of Kings, we don't see that seamless swap out with the Aegis. Analog doesn't have a BKB in the works. He's gotten greedy. He's going for the Ags instead. So we'll have to see if Hokori peel back maybe a little bit here, decide that there is a very real possibility that we could give up a few core kills and then give up a lot of our advantage. But at the same time, pausing the game and looking for the next Roche is never going to be a bad choice, because it's King of Kings that are still under pressure to make the play. And this is a smoke really with only grip and a blink initiation on Hannes, so they are really lacking the tools here. Benny's going to need to do a lot as well damage-wise, because Burst is not really on the table. They are very slow. They need to find, ideally, a pick onto, I think, Analog, but yeah, the play's going to be botched now. Ideally, if anything, they would see the Ember Spirit in a second here. If Mini was there to show, then they'd think it's just a solo Ember pushing in the bot lane like he has, but as soon as they see the Razor here, they know not to separate hands on Hokori, so yeah, just a completely whiffed smoke. I feel like they should almost re-smoke at this stage, but I don't think any of their heroes have one.
No, I don't think so. They got a couple heroes with dust, so, you know, that isn't useful. Not sure why I mentioned it, but yeah, no smoke, and Hokori will maintain control. Roche about 90 seconds out, so Hokori are in a position where they can afford to do this, right? Take it sort of low and slow, don't rush anything, finish off that sort of next round of items, and then at that point fight for the next Roshan. And sure, King of Kings will presumably be in a position to contest it at that point, but you are so far ahead right now that I don't really think that they feel that that's a big enough threat to deter them from this path.
Nope, definitely not. And this is unfortunately where we get into the realm of luxury. We're getting a ton of force staffs, a ton of halberds. Even if you get that big suck, if you have 3 or 4 halberds to then kite away, well, your Razor's still not gonna be able to do very much. And at the same time, Benny's looking for the refresher for a very good reason here, just because post BKB, it is a hopeless situation. So it almost feels like they do need time now. They need to wait for their squad. Double Midas too, you know? Maybe get buyback, get the reliable gold, if anything. But Unfortunately, that's where the Ember Spirit being forced to deal with the super creeps top means he's not been cutting bottom, means that this tier 2 tower is gone, and now Hokori have a very easy path. If King of Kings ever lose a fight on their side of the map, it's most likely just going to be another Rax, and then could very likely be the game, and another smoke. They're looking for the play here. They got a blink dagger on the Mirana as well, so they could blink Yule's set up into the arrow. But no wards, no high ground vision for King of Kings, so this is real scary.
Thing is, looking at this now, Vitali, he has the item. He has picked up the Lotus Orb. He can drop that onto a teammate. If you just shut down Benny's play with that static link immediately, then no one else is really going to do enough damage to win these fights. That's a little mistimed there. They just throw everything out in kind of the wrong order. Minnie's able to pop a BKB, and now they will fight their way through this. They drop down the Serpent Wars. That Lotus is reflecting everything, though. So again, Benny is not going to have as much damage as he thinks he does. They are still trying to fight their way through it, though, but Benny has been taken down. Analog will at least get traded. What more can they do here? Gonna try to regroup as Dunhow is falling back. I'm just not sure they're going to be able to get away. Mini gets locked down. Dunhow should be falling here as well. One more right click will do it as Yuma picks up the double, and Hane will TP out, but, well, I mean, as I said, that's the item. The Lotus just reflecting that static link. All the damage he was taking, he was giving right back, and without itemization for more damage, Benny just didn't hit.
Yeah, and until he gets that refresher, we really can't live in these super long fights. I think we need items like the pipe. Unfortunately, nobody's building up like a mech. We don't have Greaves on table for any of the King of Kings players because post BKB, it's a hopeless situation. They had to use so much there on Analog, and oh, bottom. I never stopped. Honest. Well, nah, surely dead. He's just going to take out maybe even to the urn. And actually that's to... Okay, it's the Hokori. It's just a really long tag for some reason. That's kind of funny looking.
Oh yeah, I see that. He's got... His full tag includes, I think, every single name that Hane's ever gone by. That's something. But yeah, he was able to get away from that first fight, but they spot him out again. Hokori just keep the pressure on. They've more than doubled up their opponent's kill count now. 12k net worth lead, and we're 30 seconds out from Roshan. So, mentioned earlier on, that was probably just going to be the game plan. Right? Maintain the lead, get those items, get Roche, then you can try and really break through the high ground once again. And, well, last time around I was saying if you wait that long, maybe King of Kings can contest Roche, but you don't really care. Now I'm not even sure that they can contest a Roche attempt. They just need too much, but they are going to try and make something happen here. That is a 5-man smoke. They do have all of their lockdown at their disposal. Benny is 12 seconds away from Eye of the Storm, though, so you could somehow delay this just the tiniest bit, but they do have to push forward. They ran into Gardic, though, and they actually think the Roche attempt is coming. They scanned near the pit and hit someone, but it was not someone actually attempting Roshan. Oh. And now this gets awkward. Arrow connects onto Hane on the other side of that pit. They're going to go for him. Dunhow trying to blink in with the Rolling Thunder, keeping his teammate alive, but it's still all about Benny here. This time the static link was not reflected, so he is actually going to be able to do damage here, but yeah, you don't have survivability. So he gets taken down. Benny will fall. There's an Aegis on the deck. Oh, he denied it! Hane big plays with the Serpent Wards. The problem is everyone's dead on the King of Kings side, and let's count the deaths on the Hokori side. 0. We're done.
Yeah, I don't think they can take it anymore, and checking buyback status, that's a whole bunch of no's, only the Pango, so at the very least this is going to be, I think, mega creeps. They do have Glyph, you know, a little bit of a bright side, but this mid tower's already been whittled down so much from the previous push that there's not much they could do. Analog's even taking the tier 4s just so that way he can do a little bit more damage, but really, that's what they needed to do on King of Kings. They needed to start the fight before Vitali got set up, before you have that harass, the vision coming through, but they just don't get the clean initiation. They jump the gun. Hokori really blows everything wide open with, again, another just freehand arrow that just barely clips on Hane's, and then, well, suddenly you don't have any control, you don't have any lockdown, everybody dies after the fight. There's so much physical damage coming out from Hokori because of Yuma, and well, Duna, he's trying, but again, desperation, and with one range rack, they're not megas, but this is definitely not a position that feels too good to be in, and Yuma, he's just going to poke it, and actually just going to BKB hit it. Okay. Well, they're megas.
You can get an arrow on the mini there on the back end, so there will be no chase after these Hokori heroes as they back away. And, well, that feels pretty close to a sort of checkmate move from Hokori. They just shut down their opponents entirely. And like you said, the Olakor, he's been so on point. 5-2 and 13. We talked about the Mirana Kunkka combo in the draft, but most of the time he and Yuma are just kind of calling their own numbers, setting up the plays for themselves, not even really needing to combine their forces to get these lockdown plays going.
No, it feels very, very clean, and honestly, I don't want to say a perfect game, but with the way that he got himself set up early on, it's just always nice to see a Mirana able to snowball his levels and then just have a great effect across the map. Of course, he was laning versus a safe one Ember Spirit, not the strongest laner traditionally, but it still feels like he's just continuing to have this very, very strong effect on the map. And whenever your 4th position has a good game, you feel it throughout the entire lineup because it's just you have a Forest Staff, you have a Yule Scepter, you have all of this luxury to play around with, and it matters so much more. And well, Benny, there goes your BKB. Yuma watches in disgust almost as he TPs out, but still, Hokori, if they really, really want to, I can just imagine them smashing their faces against their enemies, just looking to get diebacks. And I'm surprised, King of Kings, they're actually trying to hold on here. They don't have a very good lineup versus Megas, unfortunately. I wouldn't be too surprised if we saw Mini pick up a Battle Fury just to make this creep clear a little bit easier. And they have actually been able to farm up all of their buybacks. So Hokori definitely have a rough fight ahead of them, but that's where it might be a slow and insidious death as, well, there's the arrow. Dunha.
Get locked down, taken out quickly. Surem will fall as well. Benny got clipped by the Torrent. No BKB as he used it to TP out before. And there's going to be all the buybacks that they really have. They're just desperately now trying to throw anything against the wall, see what sticks. As they are getting a little bit of lockdown onto Yuma, but where's the damage? It's just not coming out. They're falling back inside of their own base. They can't afford to do that at this point in T. Their tier 4s are going to start taking damage if they do, as Hane will fall. He'll use his buyback as well. All hands on deck, but here comes Analog pushing in, using the shard, that inner fire, healing him up. The Fiend's Grip comes out, but it's way too late to matter, and the GG will be called. Corey, one last clean fight, still no deaths for the lineup, although Analog, no, won't even die to the fountain. They get away clean, and they take game 1 in dominant fashion.
And the Veno Pickers won. This is a huge loss in the Dota world today, but man, oh man, that was just a very clean, easy game for them. Super, almost disgustingly easy to execute. They had the really nice lane swap that King of Kings started off that game with, putting Analog really kind of on the back foot, but that's where I think you give Yuma heroes like Kunkka, like his Morph, like his Monkey King, and then he just absolutely took over this game. There was really no one to play against, and I think it's hard to point fingers, but Benny, in going for the item build that he went for, I feel like he wasn't able to put enough pressure, especially around the timings, around that first Roche, or found the first few contests where Hokori were pushing into King of Kings territory. They just simply weren't ready to fight item-wise, level-wise. We didn't see really anyone snowballing out of control here. And in almost, I want to say, classic fashion, whenever this Ember Spirit gets picked up, you constantly are fighting for your own damage unless you have that crazy start. And that's why he's a mid laner. We don't see him in the carry very much. You don't have that advantage by default over your opponents. You had to dodge out that lane. And even though it works great for Benny early on, Hokori just kind of swing it in their way. And then you look at the lineup of Hokori, and who are you killing if you're mini? Are you killing Thiliakor, who's got 3 items? Are you killing either of the strength cores? I think he just ran out of damage in this draft, and that's where you look over at Benny for damage. Everybody on King of Kings looked at him, and he's trying, but you have the Lotus Orbs. He only has 1 BKB. No one has farm, and Hokori just get a disgustingly easy victory, it feels like.
I wish I had not actually scrolled over here. I'm looking at the hero damage in the match. Benny, 8,401. That is lower than Ember. That is lower than Pango. That is lower than Hane's Shadow Shaman. That is not acceptable. I mean, damn, Benny, it was a situation he was forced into, but that is even worse than I kind of thought it was for him. That's just not good in the slightest. And like you said, I think this Hand of Midas really shifted things up. He followed it up with the Boots of Travel, going full greed, and when full greed works, you look like a genius. When it doesn't work, you're 0-7 and the fourth lowest damage on your team.
Yeah, and honestly, you have the perfect example in this game. You look at the other man who was greedy, who had a free lane, who had a free game. Yuma went boots of travel second item. Problem is, he can do something with his level 6. He can put pressure across the map. I think the biggest problem with is just with how easy King of Kings had to give up their tier 1 tower so early on because Hokori, again, they flooded in. We just never saw that counterplay. We never saw them able to really use their spells in the first 15 minutes of the game, and I feel like in very typical fashion, if you're not making plays versus your opponents, then, well, they're going to make plays versus you. And I think King of Kings just caught off guard with the Corey's aggression.
Yeah, caught off guard is really, I think, the best way to describe it. They just get kind of sucker punched there. So if you're Hokori, and we mentioned with this second series a chance to put more points on the board, they've secured at least 1 point with this game 1 victory. They would love to end the day with a positive record, get this 2-0 sweep, and really push into that top 4 territory. But King of Kings presumably are going to have something to say about that. Game 1 does not go their way, but we should be seeing some adjustments draft-wise from them for this second match. So we'll be stepping away for a little bit. We shall return in about 5 minutes, though, with the start of Game 2 between King of Kings and Hokori. So stick around, and we'll be right back.